Heather Galler is a well-known abstract folk artist from New York who has won many awards. She says that I love color to the point some people would be turned off, but those who love color as I do really get my work. I love to be inspired by movies, music, books, and of course other art, but the most important element of inspiration is my environment. The Mexican, Italian, and French culture drive me to paint the most. Let's get started on making our own Heather Galler-inspired works of art. Drawing lines and patterns. When you get your sheet of paper, start out by drawing a table, a placemat or a cup, a dish, and some patterns on the back wall, as well as patterns on the table. Once you're done drawing your background piece of paper, you're going to get two smaller pieces of paper. The longer rectangular piece is going to be used for the cup. So on this piece of paper, I'm coming up with a different pattern that I can place onto my project for the cup. So I want to create a different pattern for my cup than I did for the background or table. For that small piece of paper, you'll notice I'm setting it beside it because I am going to be using that for the mug handle. So it's almost like a bubble letter C. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. Painting with tempera. When I get my supplies out, I'm going to take my tempera cakes, add water to it, and stir. Once I've done that, begin by painting your background using your tempera cakes. You'll notice that by the time that I'm done, I have little to no white onto the project. I'm constantly dipping from the paint to the water to ensure a nice full coverage of paint. Now, once I've got my background painted and my plate painted, I'm going to speed things up just a little bit so that you can see this whole thing getting completed. So that by the time I'm done, there's little to no white. Now, once I'm done with my background, please do the same thing for a pattern for your mug as well as the handle for your mug. The nice thing about tempera cakes is that they dry relatively quickly. So just setting this aside so that it can dry, I'm going to go ahead and move on into the next step. Ink dauber. When you get your ink dauber, please be careful with it. It might not come out with ink right away, so just gently tap it onto the paper until the ink starts to flow into the sponge. As it flows into the sponge, you'll notice I am not squeezing the ink dauber. I am just now letting the ink flow from the container into the sponge and onto the paper. That allows a really nice black line to outline and design my patterns, very similar to Heather Galler. Now, I like to go ahead and outline everything. That might be a personal choice to you as well. If you would rather use some oil pastels to decorate your work, that's another option. I chose not to. I really liked the way that Heather Galler used that nice thick black line into a lot of her work. So I'm just going to keep using the same inspired look as I continue working on my project. You can see that a little bit of it is still wet with the paint, but I felt like that's probably going to be okay because the ink dauber has a little bit of paint. That's the one reason why I really like using these tempera cakes is that it does dry relatively fast. So check your work, see how you're doing, and if you can continue putting your ink dauber on. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors and start assembling it together. Now that I have my pieces of paper, I'm going to gently and carefully slide over or fold into a U shape like that cup. When I use my glue stick, I'm going to glue down those two tabs. Leave it about an inch. You don't have to measure, maybe 2 finger widths to ensure a good glue. I'll do the same for the handle. I'm going to glue those down and I'm ensuring a good solid stay. Now, using some of this foamy polyfill, I'm going to use that to make it look like steam coming from my cup. There we go. I love the way this looks. I hope you have fun making your own Heather Galler inspired artwork. Thanks for watching.